This is something that I wrote. I'm not sure if it's a poem. You can tell me afterwards. It's called Man, Woman, and Child. It's about my first love. I was 5 years old, and love was not a question. It was an instinct. She had hair that hardly tickled her ears and a lizard painted on her ankle bone, and she always kept looking for me in hide-and-go-seek, even though she knew exactly where I was. This was not a fleeting kind of love. I grew 2 shoe sizes in a week, and I changed my middle name every time I watched a new Disney movie, but I knew permanence when I saw it, and I saw it in her. She was my Peter Pan, and I clung to her shadow like a security blanket, the kind of security blanket that could spontaneously combust into fireworks, or food fights, or thunderstorms, or galaxies, securing that there would never be a dull moment in our life. She woke me up in the middle of the night with a bottle of shaving cream and a razor, and she told me, "All this hair is weighing me down. I want to feel raindrops on my head." So I shaved her bald on the kitchen floor. I was 8 years old, and love was not a task. It was an adventure. She ran everywhere she went because she felt awkward walking by herself. She'd skip barefoot across the soil and tell me that if I walked too slowly and stomped my feet, that I'd kill all the worms and there'd be no one left to recycle the dirt in this world. And of course I didn't believe her. But of course I did. She let her yellow mellow. In fact, she rarely flushed the toilet because the sound of it scared the cat that we rescued together from a hollowed-out tree by the swamp. Its meows echoed in this far-off kind of way, and it lived between her feet, wrapping in a constant figure eight around her lizard-painted ankles, and I secretly hated that cat. She named it Milo after my favorite movie, and that couldn't be my middle name anymore. I was 11 years old, and love was not simple. It was a contest. But that was okay, because I was a fighter, and that cat was getting fat and mean. It would puke on the couch at 3 o'clock every Thursday, and she would yell, "Oh man, woman and child," because inclusion is important no matter how upset you are. When she moved out of the bedroom next to mine, she offered me the couch. She was leaving. And I had lost, and I could feel this longing growing inside of me like a marshmallow in a microwave, and no cat puke couch could keep me from popping. It took 16 songs on the radio to get to where she was going, so she made me a mix CD, perfectly timed. And as the Beatles launched into their final verse of Hey Jude, I'd spring the door open in a moving car and sprint across the grass patch in front of her third-story apartment, where we'd paper the walls with our poems and sprinkle sand on the hardwood like we were camping on the beach. I was 13 years old, and love was not oxygen. It was candy. And I've always had a dangerous sweet tooth. She'd hold my hand while we watched TV, and I'd get all tingly in places you don't talk about with your mother. And I'd count down the commercials till she fell asleep on my shoulder so I could listen to her snore. She was a one-woman band. She was a sidewalk spectacle. She was everything that I wanted so desperately to be. She had a girlfriend, and I knew about it, but she didn't know I knew. But she knew that if I knew, I wouldn't know what to do, so she kept it quiet. And I pictured building her a tree house out of topaz so I could climb up and she could fly down and we could settle into turquoise happiness. Then I got a girlfriend and she didn't know, and I knew that if she knew, she would know that I was transparent. And she was the only person I'd ever met made of color. Later she moved 16 hours away, combination plane and ferry, 320 songs and no mix CD, and that had to be okay because I was 15 years old and love was not a slow dance, it was a secret. And life went on and I grew up, or something close, in the kind of way that happens behind your back and you don't notice until you drop everything and turn around. I was 17 and I turned around and there she was, up on my topaz pedestal, getting antsy. I took an airplane up to see her, and it was the first time I realized I could get up that high. When I reached her, the altitude crushing in her lungs, she threw the news off her chest like she'd been holding her breath with it. "I'm an alcoholic." She spoke like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. She lit up a cigarette and sucked in my lack of surprise as I sat there and I told her about the time when I was 6, and I caught her smoking in the snow. In her underwear. Boys' boxers. She speaks out loud when she works, narrates the grinding of the coffee beans like there's a blind person in the room taking mental note of her every motion. She goes to bed at 9 o'clock so her brain doesn't melt into scary dreams. She shops at the grocery store twice a day because 2 meals ahead is too daunting. She watches movies starring sociopaths so she can be on their side. And she gives herself away because she's forgotten that she's precious, but most importantly, she lets me hide behind the door frame, even when she knows I'm there, and she will always, always keep looking. And even though the wrinkles in her face aren't all from smiles, and she forgot what it felt like to believe that she could fly, even though I feel it in her pulse that there are lessons that she doesn't want to learn, I know because she taught me. Love is not a question, it's an instinct.